You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform, and here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. And my guest, Abdul Malik Kubako, Inusa Fuseni, Dr. Tupari, and Randy Abe. Now, we need to move on. You are asking for just a minute.
Just a minute
for a
to
comment,
say that
yes,
the decision of the court is interesting. I think that those who have been affected can test the decision.
Okay.
And see, so that the court will have opportunity to bring more clarity to the matter. Because when you look at Article 195 of the Constitution, it appears that those who are even appointed to governing boards under Article 70 might sometimes be public officers by virtue of the institutions from which they come from.
Okay. I still find a bit of technicality even in the attempts to get these matters a lot more, you know, demystified, so to speak, from the law for the people's general understanding. But the entire conclusion is that, maybe just read that bit of it. Entire conclusion is that, number one, members of governing boards of statutory boards and corporations appointed in accordance with Article 71 of the Constitution are not members of the public service, and their tenure is not governed by Article 191 and 195 of the Constitution. Therefore, each person may be removed at will by the President. We declare accordingly. Number two, upon a true and proper interpretation, a public service officer appointed in accordance with Article 195 of the Constitution and may not be removed, save in accordance with the terms and conditions of his or her contract of engagement, or in the absence of such, for just cause, pursuant to Article 191 and 195 of the Constitution. So Ezan Kumar just asked me a question. He says, what if a president appoints one of these people and gives them the terms of the contract, then they put in there that they are supposed to be in there for 20 years? You say the court says they can only be removed in accordance with the terms of their contract. So if a president decides to appoint the person and gives them, 20 years, what will happen? And the final point they made is that, to the extent that Section 14 of the Presidential Transition Act requires chief executives or directors general, however described, of public boards or corporations to cease to hold office upon the assumption of office by a person elected as President of the Republic of Ghana, the same is hereby declared to be unconstitutional and void for being in contravention of these provisions of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Now let's go to the Electoral Commission. And the Auditor General has done a special audit. And in this special audit by the Auditor General, it makes a number of revelations for the audit it did for specific institutions in 2018. And the audit found that the Electoral Commission was or sold voters' information to a private company, who in turn sold to financial institutions. People say this is such an unpardonable breach. What exactly have the Electoral Commission breached in this regard? So on this regard, let me start with Dr. Tupari. What exactly will the Electoral Commission be guilty of in this regard, and why are we saying something must happen against the Electoral Commission? What exactly will happen?
Sami, I am not looking at reading what has been thrown out there. I am not sure that I am inclined to conclude that what happened between the EC and the B system will amount to a sale of information. In this case, the voter register, because I don't have that sufficient facts to conclude. What I do know is that the B system is being engaged by the financial institutions to make verifications, to verify customers' ID, which is pursuant to Bank of Ghana's policy, that any customer dealing with a bank, the bank must be able to ascertain your identity. So you may present the Electoral Commission's ID card, or you may present your driver's license, or you may present your passport. So the B system, which is a technology...
That's a private company.
Exactly. Has contacted these units, the DVLA the passport authorities, the Electoral Commission, and what have you, to be able to obtain what they call primary information. Because with the voters register, you do have something which is not that basic. The basic information will be the name of the person, the age of the person, and then the voter ID, which is specified on the voter's card, the voter's card. Then beyond that, you have...
I mean the voter ID number.
The voter ID number is on the voter's ID card.
Right.
The name of the person is there. The age of the person is also there. Beyond that information, which is basic, any person can obtain. In fact, you, can obtain. The political parties can obtain. Beyond that, you have what we call the addresses, or the detailed bio of the voter. So you may have the address of the person, the name of the father, the name of the mother, the educational background, and what have you of that person. If you require any information beyond this, beyond the basic information, then you need an order of a high court. And of course, that is consistent with CI 9091, and that is regulation 16 of CI 91. So what EC might be doing, I'm not here to justify them, it's just the information that is in the air. And if I can just spin my mind on the information, it's the basic information which the B system obtained, because they have a server. As we speak, I know they have a server on the Electoral Commission's premises, and which, if you submit your ID to the bank, then they would verify from that server whether or not you are the person claiming to be that person. If you present a passport, then they would verify for the bank whether, because for them, I'm not sure the banks have the sufficient system. They have the required system to be able to conduct the verification by themselves. So the server, which is on the EC premises, is what they now have a memorandum of understanding to be able to deal with cost or expenses, because the server must have electricity, it must run with electricity, and of course there should be an air conditioner, whether you should be able to bear that cost for the Electoral Commissioner or not. So I understand that, pursuant to the memorandum of understanding between EC and the B system, the B system is paying a commission on the amount of money that they are charging the banks for those services. And that commission, according to them, is in reference to the expenses that Electoral Commission...
The money they are paying to the Electoral Commission. And that, you say, does not amount to sale.
That's what I'm saying,
of the voters' information.
Based on this primary information, I am not so sure that I am inclined to declare it as a sale.
Okay.
If
so as I heard people talk about it, I just read portions of the Data Protection Act, and I was thinking, is it what people are referring to, prohibition of sale of personal data in Section 89 of the Data Protection Act? It says a person who sells or offers to sell personal data of another person commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine of not more than 2,500 penalty units, that's 30,000 Ghana cedis, or to a term of imprisonment not more than 5 years, or to both. It says for the purposes of this section, an advertisement which indicates that personal data is or may be for sale is an offer to sell the said data. So, from what you read the last part,
read the last part.
The
one that talks about advertisement.
Yeah, advertisement.
For the purposes of this section, an advertisement which indicates that personal data is or may be for sale is an offer to sell the data.
Okay. So you will have an advertisement which qualifies to be a sale under this particular act, or you have an act which in itself amounts to sale. So there are two. Now, in this particular case, we need to be able to decode the memorandum of understanding, whether or not that is sufficient act of the EC, between the EC and the B system, to say that this is a sale
of personal data.
And if it's a sale, what are the ingredients of a sale at all? Because if you're bearing the cost if you're bearing the cost for the server on the premises of the EC, is that a sale? Because you put your server there in order to obtain a basic information to facilitate banks' transaction, and in pursuant to Bank of Ghana's policy, should the EC be deemed in this context to have sold the information to you?
Okay,
and that is very important.
Let's hear from you. And by the interpretation of section of that, the Data Protection Act, personal data means data about an individual who can be identified. A. from the data, or B, from the data or other information in the possession of or likely to come into the possession of the data controller. In this case, the data controller will be the EC, and they will be handing it to the buy systems.
Now, you know, this particular issue got me thinking and reading a bit. I think that we've gotten to a point where we need to demystify some things, or sometimes we're in a rush to scream, you know, when perhaps there is no need for those screaming. In this country, I've heard a lot of people say that there are banks that don't accept voter ID cards. First of all, let's establish something. Anytime you go to the bank and you present an ID and they accept that ID, you should know that they have access to determine the veracity of that ID. You should know that. So when you go to a bank and you present your passport and they accept it and they go and check, what it means is that the issuing authority of your passport has provided access to the bank to be able to verify whether the passport you've brought to the bank is indeed yours and it is legitimate. If you go there and you go and present a driver's license and they accept it and they check it, you should know that the issuing authority for your driver's license has granted the bank access to that information of yours.
Yeah.
So if you take a voter ID card, the only way the bank will accept a voter ID card is if they have access.
Is it possible to be able to verify without compromising your information?
What would you...
So that DVLA or the passport office will give you a certain restricted access.
Yes.
That doesn't amount to you being able to know.
Exactly.
So we can then interrogate and find out the level of access that these banks have to our data. But I'm saying that we need to establish the basic fact.
Good.
That any time you go to the bank and you present any ID and the ID is accepted, it is verified.
Okay.
And the only way the bank can verify that ID is that they have access to your information.
Yes.
So let us demystify the issue of when EC has sold this and all that. So we'll say same as for passport office, we'll say same for DVLA, we'll say same for this. We have a peculiar problem because we do not have an ID, you know, a national ID. We're now trying to, you know, do one.
Right.
And I'll tell you something. I had an interview with Mr. Pamdeti, who speaks for the National Identification Authority, 2 weeks ago. Now, in the course of the interview, one of our viewers had sent a text that, look, this national ID, he went to the bank refused to accept it as an ID. So Mr. Pamdati explained.
That's a chip-enabled ID.
Yes, no, he explained that, you see, they cannot be given access to the data in bits and pieces. So they would have to finish the process up to a certain point, and then the banks can have that access. All he meant was that, as at this point, in terms of the work of the National Identification Authority, they've not gotten to a point where they put together all the database and then let the banks have access to it.
Guess what? I got mine, I presented it to a bank, they accepted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the basis?
So there are others who also say that they presented theirs, it wasn't accepted. So Mr. Pamdati makes this point. Then he also goes on to say that he thinks that the banks are also being too, you know, technical, and that they had a certain arrangement with them.
Okay.
But it's just to illustrate the point.
Right.
That any time you present an ID which is admissible, what it means is that whoever is accepting that ID has access to verify.
Okay. So
Just one point. It's Sam.
He's saying that this is much ado about nothing, really. What's the point about?
Well, no, the
Auditor
issues
General,
of payment and
Auditor
others,
General
there could be
making
issues.
a finding, and all of us getting, you know, as it were, charged up about the Electoral Commission doing some wrong. Okay, he says some 30 seconds. Yes.
Yeah. You know, this particular BP system and listen, their relationship with the EC has been going on since 2006. So it's not a recent
2006.
2006.
All right.
So it's not a recent thing. And as Andy said, it's very important to establish the basic ingredients to distinguish you walking into a bank, presenting an ID, with a view that this ID will be verified, and then you turn around to say that the information has been sold. The two are not the same.
Or it is the question that they are doing it through a third-party private entity that they have an issue with. The Auditor General may have an issue with,
in any case, the Auditor General is speaking in favor of the EC.
If the EC does it directly with the banks, then it will be in your interest to facilitate your transaction, so there's no problem.
But the report of the Auditor General is actually in favor of the EC.
The question is about
talking about the payment, that we are interested in these payments because they must be captured.
Right.
It's not so. Okay. So we should be interested in knowing whether or not the company, in this case B System, has paid the EC or not. Not to categorize it or conceive it as a sale. It's a kind of technical term to consider.
Interesting. I'll share some other views with you.
Doctor, I have a completely different view about this.
Okay.
Completely, even different from Randy. I think that this should raise the flags that some company in Ghana is doing what is called in data protection, harvesting of data. And they're harvesting the data for commercial purposes. And we don't even know the extent of the harvest. Whether they are taking all the data that were provided to the Electoral Commission.
Legitimate question.
Randy has even told us that probably the DVLA is providing that data as well to other people. And it raises issues of privacy rights. Now, when we enter into contracts with state agencies to provide them with our data, we do so knowing very well that the data will be protected and that no person will have the right to commercialize the data. Nobody can harvest your data and commercialize it. B System cannot commercialize our data. No. They can't. They can't ride on the data that has been collected of persons in Ghana of voting age and make profit out of it. They cannot.
Then maybe you should provide infrastructure.
They cannot.
No.
So if B Systems, I agree, Doctor, that look, Electoral Commission can provide a platform, and that's why it is called ICT is integrated in any way. You can provide a platform and restrict certain informations on the platform for other purposes. Okay, I agree. And that should be a platform for that basis. And then a regulator, and we have a regulator already, the Data Protection Agency. That's a regulator in that sector. That no third party should be allowed to harvest the data. The data goes to the third party, and you and I are unable to tell where the data will end. Cambridge Analytica, you recall? You and I are not even going to be able to tell whether the adverts that we receive on our phones are as a result of that harvesting of that data. And sometimes it could be a nuisance, absolute nuisance. But we don't know how they come by our data. We don't even know how they come by our preferences to flood our phones with adverts. It could be as a result of the harvest of that data. That is why that data ought to be protected. Because we need to be protected from people who will take advantage of our preferences and bombard us with adverts. That's all that is there about data protection. And that's what we should do to provide. So Electoral Commission, even in the first place, had no business whatsoever to enter into it. I understand, Auditor General, what it seeks to do. If you are holding data of Ghanaians who are registered voters on the register, that data is being held in trust for the people of Ghana. And so when you decide to commercialize the data, the reward, the money you get, the outcome is public resources. Okay. So the Auditor General is interested in what you do with the public resources.
Interesting, but he defines what has happened not to constitute a sale because they are not actually giving them money for collecting the data, but sort of because they have
providing
what you call
services.
but for certain services. Now, Goku, from the arguments that Inusa makes, and I was giving this example yesterday. Yesterday, I drove somebody to the registration center. They are registering by the EC, the limited registration. I drove somebody there 4 a.m. and I was told that was the best time they can go there and get registered by close of day. The person got registered at about 7 p.m. From 4 a.m. This person has given you their data.
Yeah.
Do you have a right to deal with it the manner you are dealing with your hearing?
Well, let's take our time here. The Auditor General, by my understanding, the reading of the report, was not talking about violation of Data Protection Act.
The money.
Yes, this aspect of violation of Data Protection Act came subsequent to the release of the report by media reports and public analysis and things.
Right.
The Auditor General's focus was, one, that it appeared there wasn't what he considered a valid service level
Contract
agreement. As opposed to the MOU.
Right.
And then two, that certain monies, commission, 20%, that ought to be paid 2016, 2017 were outstanding.
Yes.
That was the Auditor General's focus.
That's right.
Now, this data thing, and Doc was right. I did some search yesterday, and I got a copy of the MOU. It's was done on 25th of July, 2006, between the Electoral Commission and the B systems. So those who ran route on Madame Charlotte say as if she was solely or exclusively responsible, got it all wrong. But I can understand where that sentiment was coming from. But then let's deal with the MOU, what it says. This thing about data thing, I'm not good at those things. I'm not also a legal mind. But if you go to paragraph 6 of the MOU, it says nature of the online voter ID verification system. The identification objects for the online voter ID verification system shall be the following. The parties agree that the voter ID card issued by the first party shall be the identification document to be used for the online voter ID verification system. 2. The voter register database compiled by the first party or on an authorized version or copy of it shall be the authentic identification data to be used for the online voter ID verification system. And this is, I think, the most important. 6.3. The common identifier that shall be used in matching the identification objects shall comprise 1. Voter ID number. 2. Name of voter. 3. Polling station number. 4. Age of voter. 5. Sex of voter. 6. Photograph of voter. Now, you have to, the lawyers, is any of this confidential, or if you put it out in the way it's being put out, violates the data protection?
Age is important, sex is important, name is important, photograph is important.
Yes. And why would you present yourself to a bank and you want to share your picture?
Do they violate any of the provisions in the Data Protection Act? I haven't studied the Act well, but I'm asking you who have studied it well. Then it comes to operation of the online voter ID verification system. 7.1 says the identification data for all registered voters shall be made available to the user institutions by means of the online verification software through an information and communications technology system to be operated by the second party, that's B systems. The system will comprise a proxy server that shall be located within the IT department of the first party, that's the EC, with a copy of the relevant voter ID card data installed on it. The proxy server will be linked by an existing virtual private network, VPN, to the banks, which will be provided with terminals that can access online the voter ID details. On presenting the voter ID card for a transaction at a user institution, an inquiry will be sent by the banks to the online verification system from a computer terminal using the details of the voter ID card. The results of the inquiry from the online verification system that appears on the screen of the terminal of the user institution will then be compared with the information on the voter ID card. If the information on the terminal agrees with that on the voter ID card, the voter ID card is valid.
Right.
If not, the voter ID card shall be deemed to be invalid, and the user institution shall take the necessary action according to its internal policies or any other policies that will be contained in the general operational instructions for the system.
Okay.
I'm asking, what I've read, put together, do they violate any provision in the Data Protection Act?
And a colleague lawyer says that the B systems is a licensee. It says when you apply for any card, ID or passport, you have impliedly given your consent for third-party verification. Do you understand where he's coming from? Because what will be the purpose of the card
that you're presenting
if we
to the
will
bank?
not be able to verify?
Okay,
So you have impliedly given your consent
implied
for
consent in the
third-party
law.
verification. That is the only way your document can be held to be valid.
Can I,
Yes.
yeah.
Otherwise, how else can we say your
There's
document is
something
valid
here
without
again, and
verification?
I'm only seeking
Yes,
education. It says, that's paragraph 11 says data security and integrity.
Okay.
The second party's access to data transmitted for the purpose of the online voter ID verification system shall be restricted and discrete. The format of data transmitted by the voter register database shall be in read-only format. Data made available through the online voter ID verification system shall be put to use by the user institution only for the purpose for which it had been transmitted as envisaged under this MOU.
Okay.
They have a provision for the
First of all,
financing. Let me finish.
Okay.
The financing and fee
Yeah.
structure.
Yeah.
But this MOU was signed by, on behalf of the Electoral Commission by David Kanga on 26 July 2006. It was witnessed by Herbert Akomia, who was head of IT, and then signed on behalf of B Systems by Thomas Belfi, and then witnessed by one Tony Eko Dazi.
In
2006.
2006. Okay. All right. So,
I'm just saying that when you look at Section 20 of the Data Protection Act, there's no implied consent.
there's no implied consent. Can you share with us? What does it say?
A person shall not process personal data without the prior consent of the data subject unless the purpose for which the personal data is processed is A, necessary for the purpose of a contract to which the data subject is a party.
Going to the bank, what does that mean? I don't know, I'm just asking.
B, is there a contract between the...
Go ahead, read.
Go ahead.
You're being very, very legalistic.
Honorable is going to slaughter himself.
Yes, without looking at the practicality.
B, authorized or required by law. C, to protect a legitimate interest of the data subject. D, necessary for the performance of a statutory duty. Or E, necessary to pursue the legitimate interest of the data controller or a third party to whom the data is supplied.
So
Listen.
You read that
Unless
again.
otherwise provided by law, the data subject may object to the processing of personal data. 3, where a data subject objects to the processing of personal data, the person who processes the data shall stop the processing of the personal data.
You're right. So I wanted to ask you whether you thought that the aspect, is it D or C, to protect a legitimate interest of the data subject.
Yes.
You, the holder of the ID.
So
you
what
are
I'm saying
you
is
are the
that-
data subject.
Yes.
So if it is being given out in this way, for purposes of your being verified so you can do a financial transaction, is it a protection of your interest?
What I'm simply saying is that
Good question.
at the point of the data processing, you need to be informed that this data that is being collected will be used for these
anyway,
purposes.
but you know, this
Because
that's
that's the overriding or the introduction.
You don't need implied consent. There's no implied consent.
A person shall
Honorable
not
is talking
process
about when the EC
personal
collects the data
without the prior consent of the data subject.
As a data subject, you should be told that your data will be used for X,
So
Y,
I'm saying,
Z.
so when you are signing for the ID card, do we check whether there is
the fine print
must. So
the
if
fine print, the small print.
so you read
everything.
They have to tell us. You know this data will be used for.
See, the bigger issue, the bigger issue.
Allow data harvesters
The bigger issue, and is implied in what I said earlier. That look, anywhere you present your ID for verification, they have access to your ID.
Right.
So this is an issue that goes beyond the EC. And you see, this issue about in this country, development, precise planning and all that, we've done this fine law.
Yes.
In doing all these things and putting them together, did we think about a national infrastructure? You're talking about third parties, private hands. This is a private company that saw a vacuum.
This private company also has a contract
with the bank.
and it is not supposed to breach.
Yeah.
So if it decided to use the data in a manner that is not consistent with
but
this,
everything
No,
already,
but-
it means they
but,
were doing
you know,
what was consistent.
Most important.
No, I mean, till
With
today,
the
important,
MOU,
listen,
right?
no,
Yes.
no, till today,
Most important.
till today, there is no evidence
but-
of they having breached.
So we take a break here.
it is not
Take a
to
break here. Let's hear Doc.
He's
Let's
put
hear
it
Doc and
better.
take a break. Let's hear Doc and take a break.
With our colleague who sent the note that
Clement
there's
Akapam.
there's an implied consent.
Yeah.
That's one leg of it. Even walking into the bank as a customer, you have a contractual relationship with the bank. So the contemplation of that section that Honorable has read, the first phase of it says a contract. As a customer of the bank, you have a contractual relationship with the bank. So the fulfillment of that contract would include certain actions, isn't also, and your legitimate interest, which is that you've presented an ID to the bank. For me, it's not just an implied consent, it's an express consent. Because you have given the ID to the bank for verification. You cannot give an ID to the bank and then you suggest that they will just collect it and look at it. They are not going to verify in terms of certain material facts about you. And in this particular case, the B system, as we said, it is not just about the detailed information of the voter. It is about the basic information. And
that basic information, the Data Protection Act describes it as personal information. And that it ought not be given unless without prior consent.
I have agreed.
And that if this is breached, you are subject on summary conviction to pay about 30,000 Ghana cedis or go to jail for up to 5 years.
So my consent
very
is
important,
needed
very
before my
important.
data is given to the immigration
The
service.
prior consent here is that the
Immigration
ID card
service will be for purpose of statutory duty. The law says so.
Great. But the prior consent,
Statutory
what is the
duty.
prior consent we are talking about?
Okay.
The prior consent is you giving your card willingly. You've not been whipped in the
No,
back to
prior
present your
consent
card.
here, doctor should be when the data is being taken.
No,
So
may I-
let's
no.
take a break.
The utility of the data is important.
Let's
What
take,
are they using
let's
the
take
data
a
for?
break on account of my reading the Auditor General's concern. There was no agreement between the Electoral Commission and B System Limited, who obtains electoral data from the Commission and offers it to financial institutions for a fee. We further noted that B System Limited failed to remit 20% commission due the Electoral Commission
them to do it for free.
in respect of charges for accessing
Commercializing
the
the
data for
So
the
build your own
2016
database.
and 2017 financial years. We recommend to
They
management
have
to
been paid
furnish
since
the
2026.
agreement
And you say
on the
there's no
existing contract, if
What
any,
reading is that?
for our review. We also urge management to recover all outstanding commission due the Electoral Commission within 30 days from the date of the management letter, failing which the contract should be abrogated.
Which contract?
And
The
the
contract.
person
Which contract? They
who
denied the
approved the authorized, who approved the authorized
They denied the
transaction,
contract that should be abrogated.
surcharge accordingly. We take a break here. When we return,
the same auditor
too
general
bad, but when
says
it
they
gets
didn't
to
find
the
the
University of
20%
Education,
in the
it looks like we
MOU.
often
Yes.
Yet they
do
say
not
there's a
have sufficient
20%
time.
to be
But
paid. Where did they
we'll
find
deal
And
with
they
it.
should
We'll be right
retrieve
back.
monies on account of what?
Well, drill your teeth.
You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis show. My guests, Randy Abe, Dr. Peter Atopare, and Honorable Yunus Afuseni and Dr. Kweku Bako. Now, this is from Clara Berry and shares with Inusa. It says, look,
Kasati?
yes, Clara Berry Kasati. She says, don't look too far to know where telcos and other companies get access to information on you for purposes of advertising. In fact, you voluntarily give your private information out to Google as a result of your consumption habits on the internet. Okay, so we talk about Facebook, all of those things. Google knows where you sleep every night and where you wake up every morning. Google also knows where you drive to every minute of your life. Your taste and preferences are known by Google. That is why it is easy to target you with specific product adverts. For the banks, they rely on data from the EC, DVLA, passports, etc. With the coming into being of the Ghana card, banks will be able to visit our homes by relying on our digital addresses. Yeah. So she says to Inusa, relax, for there are exciting days ahead.
I know. Very exciting days. I know. I mean, when you're walking signposts.
So it's okay. So
walking signposts.
So it's actually from Dan. It's actually coming from Dan of Kwabenya. I think I saw something else and I thought it was Clara.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes.
But apparently this EC thing that is bringing all this discussion is one of the things that what's the name? Charlotte was trying to abrogate and got herself into trouble. WEWE, University of Education, Winneba. In 2 minutes, what can you say about what is going on there? The court has upheld the dismissal of what's his name again? Brony? No, Brony is the the Afro Brony is the VC, but Mr. Bequin.
You mean one of the 5 that
yes, that were dismissed. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what?
Samuel Ofori Bequin.
See, I think that the political actors, the politicians and all those people must leave the university councils and the management of the universities to run their university. They should leave them to run their university. Political meddling in the affairs of this university from Professor Avoke till today, that is the whole problem. To the extent that now we have national security getting involved, getting the national security minister to write a letter. I've read the letter 10 times. I can't make the head and tail of that letter. Yeah. Written to the minister in charge of tertiary education and all that, based upon a petition received from the Minister of National Security, and how they even misconstrue allegations against the MP as constituting an attack on the government. And this as something that should elicit a letter from the Minister of National Security bothers me. Look, the politicians must stay away and let the universities run their school.
That's what you think is the problem.
Anybody whose rights are infringed upon will go to court, like they have demonstrated. They are in court.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Doc.
So I think that in respect of Bequin, we should demonstrate some consistency with the application of law. I understand that the application, the dismissal was upheld by the court simply because the court stated that several opportunities were presented to him to appear before the fact-finding committee, and he has failed. Now, if you look at the application, the affidavit which was being sent to court in respect of this application, there was this aversion to the effect that the University Facts-Finding Committee has presented a conflicting date, deliberately. That is the date that the man was supposed to go to court to stand criminal trial because the university had called in the police to arrest him, is the same date the man was supposed to appear before the disciplinary committee, the fact-finding committee within the university. So obviously, when you have criminal proceedings hanging on your head, you cannot be wise enough to elect to appear before a university fact-finding committee and ignore the criminal processes of this date. Now, a letter was presented to the effect that this was the situation. Now, I know, and I'm sure all of you do know, that an applicant who has deliberately spent an opportunity to appear before a disciplinary committee, the court can't ignore that. If that is the case, of course, we'll say that the court has done the right thing. If that is not the case, we should ensure that rule of law is upheld. Due process is respected because people's rights are involved.
All right.
It could be Dr. McQueen today.
Right.
It may be me tomorrow.
Right. Thank you very much. My guest has been Abdul Malik Kubaku, Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. News of Husseini is a Honorable MP for Tamale Central. Dr. Peter Atopare, a Senior Lecturer, School of Law, University of Ghana, and partner, Colendi at Law. And Randy Abe is host, Good Morning Ghana, Metropolitan Television. I'm Samson Ladi
of the Navrongo traditional.
Thank you very much. And I'm Samson Ladi, and in my outfit, as always, is by Latida. The news is up next.